When we picture the rulers of ancient empires, we almost always imagine kings, emperors, patriarchs, right? For literally centuries, history has painted pre-colonial African leadership as the strictly male domain. But is that actually the whole story? Were these empires really only ruled by men?
Well, the historical records suggest otherwise. It turns out pre-colonial Africa was home to some massive, absolute empire-building matriarchs. Today, we're diving into the reality of pre-colonial Nigeria, where women wielded incredible state-building power. It totally shatters the idea that politics and the military were just a boys' club.
So, welcome to our explainer, the Lost Matriarchs, Queens of Pre-Colonial Nigeria. We've got two incredible historical case studies to look at today. We're talking about women who didn't just casually participate in their societies, they fundamentally engineered them from the ground up. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the forgotten African matriarchs. Second, Queen Amina, the warrior. Third, fortifications and commerce. Then we'll look at Idia, the first Ioba, followed by the Benin-Ida War. And finally, history, myth, and legacy. Section 1, the forgotten African matriarchs, uncovering the dual-sex political system. You see, for a really long time, colonial and patriarchal lenses basically obscured the complementary roles of men and women in these ancient societies, kind of just erasing women from the historical record entirely. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly do we mean by matriarchy here? Basically, it's a social order where women are in charge, recognized as the heads of families, often wielding substantial political and military authority. Now, sure, scholars love to debate whether fully matriarchal states existed absolutely everywhere. But what is absolutely undeniable from the sources is that in these pre-colonial kingdoms, specific, highly structured roles existed where female leaders wielded enormous, undeniable power. Moving right along to Section 2, Queen Amina, the warrior, the princess of Zazzau who became a legend. We are traveling to the savannah of northern Nigeria in the 16th century to meet a child who, as the stories say, wielded a real dagger as a toddler and learned the art of governance by sitting right on her grandfather's lap during crucial state meetings. Let's quickly trace the timeline of her life so we can anchor her in history. Amina was born around 1533 to Queen Bakwa Turunku. By 1549, at just 16 years old, think about what you were doing at 16. She was appointed Magajia, or heir apparent. She took the crown in 1576 and ruled for a massive 34 years until she died in battle around 1610. Her impact was literally so profound that it became deeply embedded in cultural memory. There's this incredibly famous House of Praise song that captures it perfectly. It goes, "Amina, daughter of Nikatau, a woman as capable as a man that was able to lead men to war." I love that. It shows exactly how deeply she was, and still is, revered as a fierce martial leader. And listen, when we talk about leading men to war, we are talking about staggering, massive numbers. 20,000. That was the estimated size of her military might. We're talking a standing army of 20,000 cavalry and infantry troops. And Amina? She didn't just sit back and strategize from a comfortable throne room. No way. She personally commanded these troops from the front lines, completely overrunning neighboring territories. But here's the thing. She wasn't just a fighter. That brings us to Section 3, Fortifications and Commerce. Engineering and Economic Empire. Amina was a brilliant administrator who built up her kingdom's economy just as fiercely as she fought on the battlefield. And this brilliantly illustrates just how multifaceted her leadership was. She built Amina's walls, these massive earthen fortifications up to 20 feet high around conquered settlements. And crazy enough, remnants of them still stand today. She also secured vital trans-Saharan trade routes and introduced the highly lucrative cola met trade to Hausaland. Yep, the original caffeine kick in cola drinks. Plus, on the military tech side, she pioneered the use of metal armor and helmets for her troops. These innovations didn't just expand Zazzau's borders, they created a true, undeniable regional hegemon. All right, let's travel south now to the Forest Kingdom of Benin to meet our second matriarch in Section 4, Idia, the first Ioba. This is the story of a mother's sacrifice and power in the Benin Kingdom. To really understand India, you have to grasp the dramatic life-or-death stakes of tradition versus innovation here. Traditionally in the Benin Kingdom, queen mothers were literally executed when their sons took the throne. Why? To prevent them from ever becoming a rival to the Oba, or king. It's brutal, right? But her son, Oba Esege, completely shattered this tradition. Instead of killing her, he abolished the practice entirely and created a brand new, incredibly powerful title just for her, the Ioba, as a reward for helping him secure the crown in the first place. Just look at the immense political power that came with this new role. As the first ever Ioba, Idia was bestowed her own separate palace at Usulu. She held the exclusive right to recommend chiefs, she was granted her own throne, and she was even allowed to wear special coral bead ornaments that were normally strictly reserved for the Oba himself. It absolutely proves that a completely different, highly structured social order existed where women could command truly unprecedented privileges. Section 5, the Benin-Ida War. Because, you see, Idia wasn't just a political force behind the scenes. She was a brilliant military tactician. We're talking disguise, deception, and a stunning victory. Now, what's really interesting here is the step-by-step tactical deception she pulled off during this critical 1515 conflict. So, step 1, a kingmaker's betrayal actually tricks the Igala king into attacking. But Idia doesn't just sit back and watch. Step 2, she actually disguises herself as a male warrior to fight right alongside her son. Step 3, and this is my favorite part, she deploys pseudo-warrior dummies on the battlefield to confuse the enemy, basically ancient inflatable decoys. Then, step 4, she ambushes and utterly defeats the bewildered Igala army, personally taking down the enemy's chief native doctor. I mean, she quite literally saved her son's entire kingdom. Moving to our final section, 6, History, Myth, and Legacy, separating the legends from the scholars. When dealing with historical figures this monumental, we really have to pull back the curtain and look at the clash between these exaggerated oral traditions and actual physical evidence. The contrast here is super fascinating. Oral tradition claims Queen Amina conquered all the way to the Atlantic Ocean and, well, violently beheaded her lovers every single morning, which honestly is a terrible dating strategy, but scholarly evaluation tells a different story. It shows a highly pragmatic state builder who fortified trade routes and cleverly leveraged cavalry to build an empire. The myths, while definitely captivating, often just amplify a core truth of an expansionist policy and turn it into this legendary folklore. Thankfully, modern academia is actively working on recovering these lost histories. Publications like Matriarchs, a journal for matricultural studies, are doing the heavy lifting, cross-referencing chronicles, oral histories, and actual archaeological traces, like the physical ruins of Amina's walls. They're working to undo those colonial erasures that basically left these incredible women out of the history books for so long. So let's sum it all up. Queen Amina in the north left an undeniable legacy of massive fortifications and the cola trade, even though she's surrounded by myths of ritual killings. Queen Idia in the south secured her title as the first Ioba and won a massive military victory, despite the myths about her wielding supernatural powers. Stripping away the mythology doesn't diminish these women at all. If anything, it grounds their sheer incredible achievements in historical reality. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. If colonial and patriarchal lenses managed to erase these massive female empire builders from mainstream consciousness for centuries, what other monumental stories are still hidden in history? What else are we missing? It really makes you wonder, right? Keep questioning the historical narratives you've been taught. Thanks so much for diving into this explainer with me, and I'll see you next time.